Hello, friends. Chris Corsi here, president of Thrive Today, and I want to welcome you to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. Today's topic is on dealing with uncertainty when the stakes are high. That's right. We've all probably had those times in our lives where we were pretty bogged down by something that we're dealing with, by something that's happening in our lives or relationships that feels heavy. It's a heavy weight that weighs us down, and it makes it really hard to be able to navigate some of the situations that we have in our lives. And friends, I have a really good example of a recent event that happened, and this really affected my ability to really be able to hold on to joy and peace. Friends, we had a one of our Denver trainings, Thrive trainings, was coming up just a week away. We're a week out from the training, and actually it's a little bit over a week. And my son's caught COVID, and then passed that joy on to me, and I became sick with COVID. I've had COVID a number of times here, but this particular time was a doozy. In fact, I was very sick. I was so sick that my blood pressure and my oxygen levels were extremely low, and an online emergency physician said I needed to go to the ER to rule out sepsis. This was the Monday before our Thrive training. And friends, I knew going into this, wow, if I have sepsis, then there's no way I'm going to make it to our Denver Thrive training that later that week. And I was quite concerned about how I was going to navigate this terrain. My energy was so low. My stamina was just non-existent. I felt like I was dying, to be honest with you. It was not a fun situation. So thankfully, the ER team so helpful, and they concluded I did not have sepsis, which was a good thing, but I was pretty sick. So we were supposed to fly out Thursday of that week. So this is Monday. We're supposed to leave Thursday. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know how I was going to be able to make this trip. Thankfully, the fevers had stopped several days before, so I wasn't worried about being contagious. But my energy was non-existent. I had no energy and stamina, and it was hard to just get out of a recliner and walk across the room. So as I'm thinking about leaving for the training, I'm just doing the math. The calculations were not positive. And so a couple more days go by, and I'm just praying, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I was actually running a bonus track, new track that we'd never run before with a group. And I didn't know how I was going to do this. We talked about possibly me staying back and trying to do this online. And I just knew this wasn't going to work online either. And there was no one that could really do this track because we hadn't run it before. But friends, the Wednesday, now it's Wednesday. We're supposed to leave Thursday. Wednesday, I noticed a little bit of light come in. It's like if you've ever been in a dark room and somebody just cracks the door and the light comes in. I noticed that I had a little more energy than usual. I was very excited about this, still tired, still dragging, still, feeling miserable, but I had some energy. And I thought, wow, what a good thing here. I feel some life coming back to me. And then Thursday comes, and thankfully we had an afternoon flight. And that morning, still feeling pretty rough, but you know what? I have more energy. I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's hope here that this is going to happen. And later that day, was able to get on a plane. Again, thankfully not contagious by that point, but I was able to get on a plane, and we made the trip. And I was surprised by the end of that day that I still had some energy. This was the first time in a long time that I had some energy and some life. And I thought, this is really good. I'm feeling hopeful. And there were a number of other things that were playing out during this week that just kind of felt pretty overwhelming. But friends, I made it to Denver. Thankfully, we had a little more time where I could rest for a few more days before our training started. So by the time the training started that Monday morning, I was about 75%. I had so much more energy than I did before. I had so much life. Still wasn't 100%, but 75% is pretty good. And I was able to lead a wonderful track and just be able to connect with lots of good friends, and made it through the week. And I would say not only did I get through the week, but it was a successful week. People really enjoyed this bonus track, and all kinds of good things grew in this garden. So, in this story, there were a lot of things happening within me that made it really hard to have hope. I felt sick. I felt miserable and tired. I just didn't feel like I had the capacity to climb this mountain. Have you ever felt like you just lack the capacity to do something where you don't know how you're going to be able to do it? Thankfully, my brain, tired as I was, still had some relational skill training and practice under my belt so that I could talk to Jesus about what was happening. And I had the sense that Jesus was just saying, Chris, do you trust me? And that was often the response when I checked in with the Lord. Chris, do you trust me? And I was like, yes, I trust you, even though my eyes, are telling me something otherwise here. I do trust you, Lord. And I do believe that if you want me there, you're going to get me there. And so I was able to interact with the living God to keep my peace levels up. And I was able to quiet and just try to take some deep breaths and try to be still long enough to be able to try to be refreshed in the moment. I was able to share what was happening with my family. We could pray about this together. We were even able to send out some prayers to some of our people to say, hey, we could use some prayer. So it was like me, right? This skill 12 is all about acting like ourselves. It was like me to be able to try to be resourceful, even in those circumstances where I felt pretty drained and even pretty discouraged and hopeless at times. I was able to remember who I am while navigating that terrain. And skill 11 is on returning to joy. So I was able to also feel my hopeless despair or feel my fear and anxiety around this, or be able to feel some of the different emotions that I was experiencing. And I could feel them, share them, and quiet them. And I knew that I wasn't alone, which really made such a big difference in my ability to try to stay myself and navigate this terrain. Another skill that I practiced a fair bit was skill 4, creating appreciation. So I was able to very purposefully remember the good stuff and try to hold on to other times in my life where God met me in some weaknesses. And he met me and even did some pretty amazing things with my weaknesses. And it was actually the skill of appreciation that really set the stage for one particular interaction with the Lord, where I was able to remember those times and really thank God for those times, which I think helped my brain's relational circuits come online. This is what we call skill 0. And in that situation, I felt the Lord just gently remind me, Chris, this is going to be one of those times in your life where you had a weakness and I carried you. And I felt the Lord remind me that, those really fun stories that you get to share with other people to encourage them, examples from my own life. I felt the Lord reminding me those were stories of your weakness where I was able to be strong and actually do something beautiful in that situation. So I felt like this was going to be one of those times I would get to share with other people and really testify of how God used that. And friends, here I am. I'm sharing with you the story. So that was a deeply encouraging, but appreciation really set the stage for that. And so seeing some of what God sees is what we call Godsight or heart sight, skill 13. And there were many of the relational skills I was thankfully able to use. But I share this story because it's such a poignant example of how my eyes were telling me one thing, but my eyes in the spirit, or my heart sight, was telling me something else. So in my weakness, I was able to interact with the living God and use these important relational skills to find hope and to be stable when I felt like the world around me was kind of falling away or falling apart in some way. I was able to navigate uncertainty with a sense of optimism that no matter what happens here, this is one of those examples in my life that God is going to use in a redemptive way. And I share this so that you can also hopefully have some of that in your own life where you might be navigating things that just feel like a big mountain and you don't know how you're going to climb this mountain. And maybe there is some uncertainty in your own life. Friends, this is what it's all about. We can practice relational skills so that we stay the people that God created us to be. And this is ultimately why we really do what we do at Thrive Today, because we want people to have access to these relational skills so that you have your stories to testify of God's goodness. And friends, we have a lot of resources on our website, thrivetoday.org. We actually have a webinar on it's called the Stories of Emotions. That's a really good resource. You can use that webinar and just find some encouragement with our examples of telling stories about emotions. And we have some new emotions resources coming out in 2025 that I can't wait when that's available. So stay tuned, visit us at thrivetoday.org, and may this be the start of something good in your life as you become the person that God designed you to be.